while moving heavy furniture, taking a dump. Anyway, that clip is apparently from one of those wildly expensive and so-called alpha male boot camps that have become recently popular, if only to mock on the internet. There are so many of these now, even Jesus is getting in on the fun.
Welcome to the Stronger Men's Conference. What God did in your life, it's meant to impact the world around you. It's meant to be multiplied. That's the plan of God for you.
We can change and impact the world because we serve the strong man, Jesus Christ. He says, I will go with you. Behold, I'm with you always. I'm going to give you strength.
Oh yeah, monster trucks, wrestling, fire, and Jesus! Boy, as a man, that felt both insulting and chilling to watch. And while it's fun and easy to make fun of the many clips from these camps, this of course speaks to a larger problem happening right now. And honestly, before now, which is that men everywhere are struggling with their mental health as it relates to their gender identity. Nearly 3 out of 4 of every death of despair, as in a suicide or overdose, is committed by a man. I mean, look, we're all pretty bummed out right now, probably because of the Queen's death. I mean, she had so much life left in her. But men, specifically young men, are even more bummed. While there was a 4% rise in suicides across the board, for young men, that rise was double. And that's probably in part due to men not seeking help nearly as often as anyone else. Here's a survey from Cleveland Clinic that found over 80% of men feel stressed, but also 65% of them feel hesitant to seek professional counseling. Here's another survey of 1,001 adult males that found nearly 50% of them were, quote, more depressed than they admitted to the people in their lives. Here's an insurance survey where 1 in 4 men admitted that they've never talked to anybody about their mental health. You get the point. Insurance ghouls don't screw around with this stuff. But it's not just depression. Men are struggling socially too. They are lonely. I mean, I'm not. I have tons of friends who aren't puppets. Right, Friendulous? That's right, Cody. See? I'm not lonely. But for example, dating is far more difficult for men. That's probably why they are having less sex than they used to. That and their living arrangements. Since the 60s, the rate of men living with their parents has steadily gone up, to the point that there are now more men living with their parents than living alone, or with a partner, or a roommate, or like a quirky Mediterranean cousin, or 2 hot chicks, or a zany source of increasing sexual tension. For women, that rate of living with your parents is lower, but they are catching up, so good for them. We don't know exactly why men are struggling socially, but it's probably somewhat related to the fact that they aren't making enough money anymore. I mean, yeah, we're all hurting there, but men aren't going to college as much as they used to either. Their employment rate has either stagnated or gone down. And since 1979, men's average wages have fallen 10%, while women's wages have gone up 25%. Although I'm guessing that's in part because women were paid less than men and have to catch up. Because despite everything I just said, men still rule the world? It's still a patriarchy? Everything is still dominated by men. The richest and most powerful people are still men, just not most men. So we have a bit of a pickledilly, a Dick Pilly, a Seattle mess. Society is run by men and largely designed for men. But the majority of men don't feel like they are in charge of anything. And so their anxiety around that is uniquely related to their gender identity. That's why if you were to ask, let's say, certain men if there's a patriarchy or if women have problems worth considering, you'll probably get a response that strips all nuance and just gives a laundry list of various issues that men have. Like this.
Do you believe that we live in a patriarchy and it negatively affects women?
No.
No.
Yeah, so for example, men are more likely to commit suicide,
Yeah.
more likely to die at work, more likely to declare bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Women are far less likely to be in credit card debt, far more likely to graduate from college,
Yeah.
far more likely to get a high-paying job.
You know how the left is all about victimhood and their victim mentality, claiming that they're the victim, and I'm just sick of it. Because actually, the real victims are men? Hey, quick question. All these problems that men apparently have. Who made the society that created those problems? Is it the women who make you do all the wars? But these types of weirdos can frame it as a woman problem because women are more often supported and boosted in the interest of equality because of this patriarchy that continues to screw over both men and women. Boy, if only there were a movie about this exact dynamic, perhaps involving a magical doll world and multiple musical numbers. I'm not saying that women have it easier, quite the opposite. We've had decades of women being told to be subservient baby cannons and have only recently begun course correcting from that error. Women are redefining themselves beyond that role, and while the efforts to do that are extremely difficult, the message there is somewhat clear. But with men, the message hasn't really changed much. For generations, the concept of masculinity has always been presented one specific way. Men are expected to endure physical and emotional pain with little complaint, lest we get soft. Men hate being soft in multiple ways. You can trace this all the way back to the 1800s, when writer Washington Irving complained that Americans too often send their kids overseas to become luxurious and effeminate in Europe, and claimed that, quote, a previous tour on the prairies would be more likely to produce that manliness, most in unison with our political institutions. You gotta do that trad Little House on the Prairie life, bros. Of course, war was generally seen as manly, so we did that a lot. There's, of course, a contradiction here that you'll notice more if you listen to these guys talk for more than 5 seconds, whether it's some guy in the alpha manosphere space or a more traditional Christian conservative influencer like Charlie Kirk. All the men who die in war, that's bad. And it's a sign that men have it bad. But also, war is good and necessary to create good men. And we need it because it rocks, but also it sucks and is a reason that you aren't allowed to mention problems that women have. Because men die in the wars that I'm also saying men need. Point is, there's nothing more masculine than exploding, I guess, is the point. But post-Civil War, we saw a rise in education. Not manly. But luckily, we had sports and gym class. Yes, manly. To quote a 1906 essay by Harvard professor and philosopher William James, we must make new energies and hardihoods continue the manliness to which the military mind so faithfully clings. You see, war is bad, peace good. But we certainly can't stop torturing men. That's what makes them men, after all. And to continue this essay, James brings up a very telling alternative to war. Quote, to coal and iron mines, to freight trains, to fishing fleets in December, to dishwashing, clothes washing, and window washing, to road building and tunnel making, to foundries and stoke holes, and to the frames of skyscrapers would our gilded youths be drafted off, according to their choice, to get the childishness knocked out of them, and to come back into society with healthier sympathies and soberer ideas. Gotta stoke those holes, man. The idea here is that war was always seen as a way to harden boys, because apparently seeing your friends die screaming was what made a man, and the closest equivalent to that was either being forced to do sports or working a shit job. James concluded this would ensure that, quote, the women would value them more highly, they would be better fathers and teachers of the following generation. Nothing wrong with being a dishwasher or hole stoker. I stoked holes for years to pay for school. But you can see how the patriarchy here is working against most men, right? Men are being told that in order to be men, they must punish their bodies to the benefit of more powerful men, either through war or sports or as a menial worker. I can't help to feel like this is a scam. Like, how is this different from a pyramid scheme? And as that quote indicated, the end result is that these hardened men were better suited as a mate and father. And if that sounds a little eugenicsy to you, that's because it is and was. Here's a 1920s issue of Physical Culture magazine posing the question, should I marry him? A lesson in eugenics. Oh, also we get to learn what Ty Cobb thinks of Babe Ruth. Anyway, can you believe it that views around masculinity would be tied to racism? Who would have thought such a thing? Anyway, we'd keep going this way for a while. Even in a society absolutely dominated by men, we were constantly worried that men weren't manly enough. Here's a quote from historian Arthur Schlesinger Jr. back in 1958 that asked, what has unmanned the American man? Around that same time, Playboy magazine would be founded specifically because of the, quote, womanization of America. You may notice that as being the exact same motivation for man-centric entertainment all the way into the freaking